Welcome to Withdraw Consent. My name is Victor. He's Jack. What's on the table today?
Okay, so we want to talk about, we have a video that we already made, and it was called, Do You Want America to Be the Only Superpower?
Yeah.
And in it, there was two different choices you can make. You can choose anti-war, or you can choose 800 plus military bases. If you choose anti-war, America will not be the only superpower. You have to go out there and force dominance through war hawking and 800 military bases. You got to be concerned about, we got to get involved in Ukraine because our interest, we got to Taiwan, we got to get involved. Yemen, what's going on there? Military involved in everything. You want to be the number one superpower. And if not, then you can go the anti-war route, but you got to give up that idea of America saying we're to control the entire world.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it got heavily downvoted for our videos, which I just think is great.
Right.
Because it's like, it's probably anti-war people being like, but we need to bomb more people. Downvote.
America.
I'm anti-war until the next thing comes,
Right.
and then I'll stand by the next thing. Okay. So I got another idea I want to pitch, a third option here, okay? Now people kill me in the comments, right? And they always say, why do you want to give this system more power? Every video I say, I give no power to this system. I do not want this idea that I'm going to give you for this system at all.
Okay.
This is in the future. We have a good system. A lot of people have been hung, and now we're like, what are our choices?
Okay.
Let me tell you a little story. Okay. Let's go back in history. Okay.
Okay.
2011. It's the Arab Spring. Okay.
Okay.
So basically you have, they're trying to take out dictators in North Africa and the Middle East. So you've got a rebellion in Tunisia. You've got in Egypt, one food vendor, or he was some type of vendor, right? Felt he was being oppressed, lit himself on fire, and lit the entire nation on fire. Now there's a revolution, one person. I'm not saying you should light yourself on fire, but I am saying you should do something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? There are things that can be done. One guy, okay? And then Yemen's been wild for just so long, and it goes wild then too, And so now we're looking at Libya,
Okay.
And so at the time, Libya is producing about 1.4 million barrels of oil per day.
When is this?
This is 2011.
Okay.
So we're going to look at their oil productions, but we're going to see that prior to 2011, it was steady.
Okay.
Very good oil production. And so what that caused was a high standard of living in Libya.
Okay.
Because they got the jobs, they've got they're producing their own oil is what's happening. Their gas is incredibly cheap, then they're exporting. This is terrible for the rest of the world, of course, because Libyans being successful, like they're Africans. I mean, they're North Africans, but they're not allowed to,
Right.
So anyways, France looks over there and is like, that should be our oil.
Oh.
Obviously, it should be their oil.
Clearly.
Like the Libyans, they don't deserve the oil.
Yeah.
So anyways, basically what happens is there's some rebels, right? It's extremists, and this stuff is being pushed by foreign sources. You remember Hillary Clinton, what she said, we came, we saw he died,
Yeah.
This is being fomented by outside sources. This is not a natural thing to Libya, okay? And at one point, this is unrelated, but at one point, Gaddafi is going to call them the foreigners coming in and inciting these other foreigners to start a revolution in his country. He's going to call them cockroaches.
Okay.
And he's going to later on be falsely said, well, he called all of his people cockroaches.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, he loved his people. He was fighting these dirty cockroaches,
Yeah.
Some of them wearing red, white, and blue in secret.
Right.
Not like out in the field, because this is highly illegal what we're doing, And so he goes out there with his tanks and he's taking back his territory. And the rebels are like, oh man, we need some help. We need probably some airstrikes. We need some weapons, So they basically, France denies it, but they literally have the letter from the London summit, right?
Okay.
And so the rebels sign a deal with France. France says, hey, how about you give us 35% of your oil production? And they're like, let's see, how much oil production do we have? 0 barrels a day. So sure, we'll give you all the things, just help us take power. So basically, it's unclear, but various Western powers come in and bomb out his navy and stuff. France supplies I was reading the articles this morning before we do this. It's disgusting. It's a 2011 article, and it starts like this. It's like, the starting pistol has been fired, and Britain and France rush to claim Libya's oil. That's how the article starts. Okay, so we're gonna look at Libyan's oil. Now we know about they got slave markets there right now. It's going great in Libya,
Okay, good.
right? So I'm going to put up on the screen their oil production chart. Okay. So now we're looking at it, and it starts at period of 1998 and it goes to 2010, which 2011, obviously it precipitously goes down. Now, what you're going to see after that is it goes up and down. Okay. And so what's happening is basically what I'm pointing here is look at the stability of Gaddafi, right? And then basically after that, what you have is the Libyans aren't making their oil anymore. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's inconsistent, and their highest point never reaches what it was before.
Right. And then take off big old chunks of those blue bars and just send them over to Britain, send them over to France, send them over to Italy, because Libya's no longer in charge of their stuff. They're getting cut, but they used to have the jobs.
Right.
It wasn't, like some dudes speaking French at the oil production facility. It was Libyans,
Right.
And they were reaping the benefits of their oil, and then they were selling it. They were getting the cheap oil, So basically, here's what I want to say. I am so against the idea of one country intervening in another country's business, And so when we go back to our anti-war and then we could do 800 plus military bases, which there's more than that, I know, but that's official number, so that's what I'm using. It's still ridiculous. But what if we took a policy that says we'll intervene against anybody who's intervening? You know what I mean?
Okay.
So we'll just tell France, hey, if you make that deal with them, our spies know that, if you make that deal, we're just going to carpet bomb all of France. You know what I'm saying? Just destroy every oil production facility that France owns in the entire world, no matter what country it's in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you're a good person, just leave Libya alone. They've got a dictator. I mean, you got Shakespeare plays about famous kings. They were dictator technically by the democratic retarded. Shouldn't even say that, but they're retarded,
right.
Honestly. The democratic standards that people put on there, And so that there's a strong man doesn't matter. It matters how successful are the people.
Right.
Are they better off with or without them? You look at the oil chart, they're better with them. You look at the slave markets after, they're not better off without them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I just abhor the intervention. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like if you had a rule, especially if you got a couple powerful countries together who had this common interest. So for example, say the United States signed with China, Russia, and Britain wouldn't sign on or nothing, but you know what I'm saying? But say even the United States and China just signed on and said, we will just dual mop anybody who intervenes in another country's business. You stay out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't even know if you get China to do that because they're about to do that to Taiwan. You've got to take an incredibly weak country like the United States that has no desire to expand to get on board with this. Because even France and Britain are over there expanding into Libyan oil,
Yeah.
And the U.S. is not expanding. Anyways, what do you think about this idea, though?
Yeah. What is the word that you have where people should control its own destiny?
Oh, self-determination.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this goes into that.
Right.
And that it's up to the people to get rid of stuff if it's
right.
And let them do what they're going to do. And
right. Okay. Well, let me give you the counter argument to that.
Okay.
What if you're France and you say what the people really want is what the rebels want? The rebels are just undersupplied. See, Gaddafi's got tanks and boats and planes,
Mm-hmm.
And he's evil in France's eyes. But the true people are rising up. I'm sure they don't live in that country, or you know what I'm saying? They don't have the same religion as because they're Muslim Brotherhood, So they're not, but you know what I'm saying? But how do you counter that argument?
Yeah. No, and I was actually thinking about if the United States had a new system and it was working great.
Yeah.
And you had someone claiming that France wants that system now.
Right.
Do you help them? And on one side of me, I feel like you're kind of obligated to help them get rid of the terribleness. But this,
oh, I see what you're saying.
But this
in France, they want to get rid of their previous system.
Yeah,
and their God King Macron, right?
Right. But then I feel like this argument says no, we shouldn't help them. But you know what I mean?
That's interesting. And if you also go back to the Revolutionary War, you could say, oh, nobody intervened to help those revolutionaries.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
So then we wouldn't. Was it France? came and helped
Yeah,
us.
I believe so.
So yeah, that's a tough.
It's really tougher than I thought when I was thinking this video through.
Yeah. It just, this one seems so more blatant because it's about oil. You know what I mean? There is no morality argument that I can tell from the Libya example.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And if it's not about oil, then it's about ideology. Because, like, if you look at the struggle of communism versus democracy, stupidest word in the world. And do you know what I'm saying? All these are phrased in ideological sort of like the Vietnam, Korea. It's two ideologies being backed by two things.
But that was like the Soviets and the U.S. fighting a war by proxy almost.
Right. But we were intervening in these other countries, I'm saying. So we're intervening because of ideology. Even when we intervene in the Middle East against Muslim extremists, the boogeyman, we're still doing it on an ideological basis. Like, we don't like what ISIS stands for,
But you really think we care about ISIS, or you don't think it's about money and power and
No,
oil?
it is about money and power, but we need a justification. So the justification is we're killing these terrorists,
Gotcha.
But in the same way, I mean, I don't know that much about ISIS. They chop some people's heads off, maybe, maybe. But it just reminds me, if we can go back to Star Wars,
Oh, okay.
You watch Star Wars, and the only reason you would ever know that the Empire is the bad guy is because Darth Vader chokes people. Right? Because they're just there to install order out of chaos,
Right.
And if ISIS, I mean, like, I talked earlier in the video about in the new system after people have been hung. So you can be like, well, you're ISIS.
Right.
You're the Empire. To bring traitors to it just depends on your perspective, though.
Right.
And now we're getting really off course, though. The problem is,
no one ever mentions that Luke killed hundreds of thousands of people in the Death Star either.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, he's the biggest mass murderer ever. So,
right. Yeah. But a voice inside told him to.
Right.
Okay. Anyways. So, wow, this really changes the whole video, though. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's what this is about, is talking and figuring things out.
Because I'm much more into intervening now.
But
it depends on the situation. Right. It depends on the situation.
Because your justification for it, from your perspective, makes it okay. It's okay for the people in charge because they think oil is a good justification.
Interesting. So it's kind of like you intervene if you choose to intervene, and then you justify it to your people. And if it's in the best interest of your people support you. And if it's in their disinterest, do you know what I'm saying? Like if you gave a speech and you were, I forget the guy's name in France. I wasn't involved in politics in 2011. So his name's not too familiar with me. But if he gives up and gives a rousing speech and says, we're going to Libya, we're going to send troops, we're going to bring back oil, you know what I mean? Blood for oil. And then everybody says, ah, you know what I'm saying? Okay, then it's justified by your people.
Okay.
Now, it might not be justified by your neighbor who's like, I'm going to nuke France because I'm pissed that they're doing that. It might not be justified to them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But maybe if you had transparent justification, this brings me back to World War II,
Okay.
Because you look at Hitler's invasion of Poland, which led to the beginning of the war, and the German people were 100% behind him. It was go save our people. 300 people just got burned, locked in a church and burnt to death. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that wasn't even as bad as the night before. Go get them. Go save them. We talked about this before. Like, what if there were, an Americans in Mexico and they were, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like it was actually an area down there that was part of America formerly. Yeah. And now there's all Americans. Yeah, we would want to just go slaughter them. So I guess it just depends on the perspective of and then what other people will allow depending on their perspective.
Okay.
So the main thing I don't like then in intervention, after all is said and done, is the lack of transparency.
And the lies that are the justification.
And the lies in the motivation. Right. Okay. So I think if you lie in your motivation, you suck.
Okay.
But if you can present a transparent argument, like what argument were the American people given why Gaddafi had to go? Not really much. He said cockroach? He said cockroaches?
I guess.
Yeah. What's the justification that America gives the American people why we're in Yemen right now? Because we need Al Qaeda to win? Like,
yeah, now they're the good guys?
Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not. Obviously.
Neither are we. Yeah.
Right. Neither we. And the Iranians might be back in the good guys, the Houthis. So, okay. Anyways, you look at Iraq. Did they give us a correct motivation?
No.
What, you don't think they had weapons of mass destruction? Are you kidding me?
No.
What about Kuwait?
Well, there was just some people they invaded for no reason, right?
You're right.
They were protecting Kuwaitis.
I'm going to tell the story real fast.
Please.
We were looking in this, and basically Kuwait was doing non-vertical drilling, which means you get at the border, you line up your pumps, and you aim them underneath the other country. And they were stealing like $2 billion worth of Iraqi oil.
A day.
Oh, yeah, per day, right? And then old Saddam's like, dang, I owe $7 billion in debt, and I can't pay it now. These guys are robbing me. I'm getting fleeced, this little tiny country over here. And then basically they're like, no, we won't rearrange your debts. Deal with it, which means his economy is going to collapse. So then anyways, he's like, man, I got to invade Kuwait. So he gets the U.S. ambassador, brings her in, April something. And then he's like, hey, this is what we're going to do, And she said, the U.S.'s official policy is we do not get involved in Arab-on-Arab conflicts, right?
Yeah.
They go back celebrating. The Iraqis are like, woo, America says we can invade Kuwait. They invade, this is terrible to laugh at. They invade Kuwait, and we form like a 20-country coalition to go out there and get them,
Yep.
And then I was going to keep telling the story.
Yeah.
Then the UN, it has to do with interventions. The UN then says, hey, Saddam, you need to get out of there. And Saddam says, okay, I'll get out of there. So they sign a UN resolution that he'll leave. All parties agree to it. He drives all of his huge convoy packed with Palestinian refugees, Kuwaiti prisoners, and they just head off down the highway of death because everything's going to be fine. They signed the resolution, right?
Yeah, totally.
Here comes the air raid, hits the front of the column, the back of the column, mass murder everybody involved.
Nice.
After nobody condemned that.
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing. Like if you're anybody in the world, you just say, okay, if the United States tells you anything, just do not trust them.
Right.
Like, what is China thinking? China's looking at it like that, and they're like, should we sign a deal with?
No.
Their word means nothing. They have no honor whatsoever. And I don't even care. I don't know. Maybe a different commander-in-chief would have made a different decision.
But would he be the commander-in-chief if he would be making a different
decision?
Right,
but it just, like, I was about to say it doesn't even matter which administration it is, because I was thinking about, like, whether it was Bush or Obama, they'd blow him up. But then I recall that story about Trump and how remember? Do you remember the story? Basically, the Iranians shot down a drone. We said it was over international waters. They said it was over theirs. And then basically they put together a package where they're going to do a military strike. And then Trump was like, well, how many people are going to die? And they're like 150 military dudes. And he's like, it's too much. We can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he might have pulled back on destroying everybody on the highway of death.
Yeah.
As a rare exception, we'll say. Also, Clinton. I feel Bill Clinton was a little more hesitant. He wasn't Obama frenzy or a Bush frenzy and death. Anyways, we've gone a long way off the path. But this is another situation where, like, why did you intervene? I guess if you can trick your people into believing the attack's justified. Like, I mean, I'll bet you a strong portion of people watching were like, yeah, we definitely should have protected Kuwait.
100%. I mean, I was in high school, but I remember like, yeah, we should.
But like right now, I'm saying.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's still justified. How many years ago was that, for goodness sakes?
31, it was 91, I think.
Yeah, so 32, yeah. And people still believe that it was justified. So I guess if you can trick people into believing, but that's a terrible way to govern.
Well, yeah, and that you have to trick them shows that you have bad motivation to begin with.
But does it matter? Because they're all tricked anyways.
But I mean, if you're judging them on the outside and you know the truth and you see that...
Okay, from objective standard, correct. Yeah. But does it matter?
Well, I mean...
It does matter. It matters if you care about like the salvation of your soul or something like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, and I mean...
Some real truth.
I mean, halfway through this, you kind of turned your view on this to being, it's really the motivations or the transparency. And the transparency is... The lack of transparency becomes bad because their actual motivation is not a good thing that people wouldn't support. Right. Therefore, it becomes a bad intervention based on your...
Right. But everybody's still duped is what I'm saying.
Everybody...
like if you look at the end, like what came of it?
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Like Kuwait, for
instance?
Like
what I'm saying is like you got away with it. You could say like it was really wrong that you robbed that bank. But like one person on the planet knows they did it and nobody will listen to that person. You know?
Okay.
And it's still not justified in robbing the bank, but you got away with it.
But then now it's because the media isn't being honest and isn't reporting this stuff and letting the people know.
I'm not saying it's objectively right. I'm just saying if you still got the money in your pocket from the bank is what I'm saying.
That's true.
Okay. So anyways, I have to put some more thought into this because it's like Viktor was saying, if we had a good system and then there was a country
that also wanted a good system and then the people were rising up, wouldn't you want to help them? Right. And the answer is heck yeah. It seems like it, yeah. Right. Anybody. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it then. Inconclusive is the final solution of this video, but it was an interesting path to go down, honestly. Yeah. And I'm gonna give it much more thought. Maybe we'll make a part 2 and actually come to something definitive where we,
All right. So, what do you guys think about any of our little rabbit paths we went down, or anything? Let us know your thoughts. We release new content Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, and hopefully you can catch some of those.